Hello, my name is Maxine Moffett, and you are tuned in to Bridge Africa This Week, the program that connects you to the top headline stories that are happening throughout Africa, from politics to economics and culture to sports. Our top headline stories for the week include the biggest ever leaked documents in history, referred to as the Panama Papers, revealed that some top African officials are involved in tax evasion. The leader of a Nigerian terrorist group known as Ansuru, Khalid al-Banari, was arrested by the Nigerian military in the country's northeastern region. South African Parliament voted not to impeach President Jacob Zuma, who is accused of diverting public funds for the upgrading of his private home in Nkala. Thank you for tuning in to Bridge Africa This Week. After the break, we'll begin with the show. African public officials are among the high-ranking figures to find their names in the leaked Panama Papers. Kofi Annan's son, Kojo, and a nephew of South Africa's President Zuma are among those listed in the papers.
The law firm Mossack Fonseca in Panama sells secret offshore companies around the world. It is not illegal to own such a company or shares, but they can be used to cover up deals that could be illegal. Research by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has uncovered trade deals between Mossack Fonseca and several African public officials. Prominent in the paper is Clive Kolobos Zuma, nephew of South Africa's President Jacob Zuma. According to the documents, Zuma helped Capricat to secure oil fields in the Democratic Republic of Congo and ordered his nephew to head the firm's operations in the country. Another African personality mentioned in the Panama Papers is Kalpana Rawal, Deputy Chief Justice of Kenya. Kalpana Rawal was implicated in several business deals linked to two companies based in British Virgin Islands. The documents revealed Rawal's involvement in real estate in the United Kingdom through offshore companies. Kenya's constitution bars public servants from owning a bank account outside the country. Ghana's former president, John Anyekum Kufuor's eldest son, John Adu Kufuor, was also mentioned in the revelations. During President Kufuor's first term, the son and his mother allegedly controlled a bank account in Panama worth $75,000. They appointed the Panama-based law firm Mossack Fonseca to manage the fund. The Panama leaks also mentioned Mamadia Toure, widow of Guinea's late president, Lassana Conte, Angola's oil minister, and the head of Botswana's Court of Appeal, Ian Kabil, amongst others.
Gun battles rocked the capital of the Republic of Congo on Monday, April 4th, shattering a relative calm that had followed President Denis Sassou Nguesso's re-election in a disputed presidential election last month.
Fighting erupted in southern part of Brazzaville with heavy gunshots in the opposition bastions between troops and a militia group referred to as the Ninjas, sending thousands of residents fleeing. Streams of people panicked by gunfire headed north away from districts loyal to the opposition, which is contesting President Nguesso's recent re-election. According to several witnesses, the crackdown of automatic gunfire, which began at 100 GMT in the Makekele and Mayana district, continued till dawn. Several explosions were heard and two police stations reportedly attacked in the strongholds of the opposition. Following the violence, hundreds of police and troops, some in armored vehicles, stretched across the city's southern areas and erected roadblocks on the mountain road between the south and the city center. The reason for the clashes was not immediately clear, but government spokesman Thierry Mongala told Reuters news agency that the former members of a militia group known as the Ninjas, who fought against President Sassou Nguesso in 1997 civil war, were behind the violence. Reuters reported that young opposition supporters chanting Sassou Nguesso leave also erected barricades near the main roundabout in the Makekele and set fire to the local mayor's office and police headquarters. This violence comes days after the Constitutional Court published final results showing that President Denis Sassou Nguesso won last month's re-election by 60%. Mr. Nguesso has ruled the Republic of Congo for 32 years.
Cameroon is generally referred to as Africa in miniature. To show that to the world again, a handicraft exposition fair was organized. Over 500 Cameroonian exhibitors selected from the 10 regions of the country took part in the 5th edition of the International Crafts Fair of Cameroon in the capital of Yaoundé.
Organized by the Ministry of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, Social Economy and Handicraft, this year's edition held under the theme, Cameroonian Crafts Against the Challenges of Standardization and Competitiveness. In this international edition of the Handicraft Fair in Yaoundé, prizes were awarded to best and good performing artists, especially those less than 30 years old. And Tangwan Ellis is one of the young Cameroonians who received an award based on his work. He uses pencils to draw portraits of people. So, Edwin, Ellis, can you just tell us how you work? I mean, what's the inspiration? Where did you get your inspiration from?
Well, I actually started drawing, by the way, back in August 2013. It was when I came across an oil painting on the internet.
Okay.
So, in first sight, I didn't actually realize it was an oil painting. I thought maybe it was a photograph. But thereafter, I came to realize that it was actually something drawn, painted with the hands. Yes.
All right, so do you really make a living out of drawing with the pencil and selling the portraits of the people you draw?
Well, if I solely depend on it, then I don't think I'm making a living out of it.
Okay, but you're doing other art stuff?
Yes, I'm doing something else. Something else.
That's great. About 600 Cameroonian exhibitors selected from the 10 regions of the country participated in this fair. This 5th edition of the fair held from the 31st of March to the 9th of April in Yaoundé. According to information disclosed by the Cameroonian Minister in charge of Enterprises, Laurent Serge Itundingwa, the participation of local craftsmen was entirely borne by the government. This year's edition witnessed the participation of craftsmen from Europe and Africa.
Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir told the BBC that he will step down in 2020 when his current mandate ends. President Bashir, who's been in power for the past 25 years, also denied allegations of abuses perpetuated by his forces in the country's Darfur region.
أنا بقول ده كله ما حصل. يعني حتى المناطق اللي استعادتها القوات المسلحة.
All these allegations are baseless. None of these reports are true. We challenge anyone to visit the areas recaptured by the armed forces and find a single village that has been torched. In fact, there hasn't been any aerial bombing. Not a single village was destroyed. But of course, because of the operation, some people have fled, but they went to government-controlled areas. They sought safety and refuge where the government and armed forces are present. That, of course, is proof that the government does not target citizens.
ده دليل واضح أن الحكومة لا تستهدف المواطنين.
The UN says that over 100,000 people have been displaced since January alone because of the fighting there. But the problem is that it says it's denied access to the area. Will you provide a safe passage for humanitarian assistance?
أول حاجة ده رقم مبالغ فيه ما حاصل.
This figure is highly inflated. 100,000 is not real. Only a very small number of people have been displaced, and they have either reached our positions or where the UN peacekeepers are deployed, and there are aid workers there.
Are you asking the UN to leave?
The UN forces and UNAMID have no vital role to play, not even in defending themselves and their units. And now as peace has returned to Darfur, I think that they have no role to undertake, and that's why we want them to leave.
Are you also thinking of having the aid workers to leave the country?
There's no food crisis in Darfur. There was a drought last season in all Sudan except in Darfur. It had an excellent amount of rainwater. Darfur produced great amounts of food, and therefore there is no valid reason for these relief agencies to stay in Darfur.
But we're still talking about 2.5 million people who are in these camps in Darfur. Do you have the capacity to feed them if you ask the UN and humanitarian workers to leave?
I'm telling you that the number is too much inflated. The exact number of all displaced people in Darfur is 160,000. As for those figures of millions, well, they are incorrect. And like I said, we have no problem feeding these people.
You've been the head of state for more than 25 years. I'd like to know, do you feel personally fulfilled, and how long do you intend to stay in power?
One of the most difficult jobs here is being the president of Sudan. There are lots of problems around us and the country is targeted from different sides. The Sudanese people are highly political. This job is very exhausting, but this will be my last term and it will end in 2020.
So this is your last mandate?
Yes, my last mandate, inshallah.
And in 2020 there will be a new president?
2020.
In 2020 there will be a new president, and I will be an ex-president, God willing.
Medical doctors on strike in Osun State of Nigeria suspended their 7-month strike, which comes months after hundreds of inhabitants have been deprived of medical help.
The organization will use these general rats in crowded prisons where tuberculosis often goes undiagnosed because prisoners do not have money or awareness to go for screenings.
You see, we thought we have actually defeated TB around the whole world. Yes, we thought like that. That's why for the past 50 years, when technology was advancing, new things being discovered for TB, there was nothing to diagnose TB, which was invented or discovered for 50 years.
Scientists in East Africa plan to exploit rats' highly developed sense of smell to carry out mass screening for tuberculosis among inmates of crowded prisons in Tanzania and Mozambique. Though data from African jails is hard to come by, studies from Tanzania, Malawi, and Ivory Coast show that tuberculosis rates are 10 times higher in prisons than in the general population, according to the U.S. Center for Infectious Diseases Control. Charlie Richter, Apopo's U.S. director, believes their unique tuberculosis detection rat technology will prove itself as an effective mass screening tool.
We've been able to screen 735 new inmates since the 1st of March until today for TB, and 165 had TB symptoms and 21 were started on TB treatment.
Some of the animals have been used to search for explosives in Mozambique, a country littered with landmines after decades of civil war. The rats undergo a rigorous training process that begins when they are 4 weeks old. They learn to recognize the presence of tuberculosis in samples of sputum and mucus at high speed.
You are watching Bridge Africa this week, bringing you the top headline stories happening throughout the continent. Still to come on the program, Congolese troops under the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic go on trial over sex abuse. Welcome back to Bridge Africa. The first UN peacekeepers accused of sexual abuse in the Central African Republic have gone on trial in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The prosecutor said that the Congolese troops denied rape charges.
More than 100 people have come forward with allegations of sexual abuse by UN and French forces in the Central African Republic. The troops were deployed to end conflict, which broke out in 2013. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has said he was shocked to the core by the latest allegation, which include bestiality. The Congolese troops appeared before a military tribunal in Dolo, a prison north of the capital, Kinshasa, on Monday. They were part of an elite force which had the rare mandate of launching offensive action against rebel groups in the mostly lawless eastern DR Congo. The 11 included 4 from the mission's current deployment and 7 from a previous contingent. The UN said it was investigating 108 new reports of abuse in the country. Last year, there were 69 allegations of child rape and other sexual offenses by peacekeepers from 10 missions. Forces were deployed in 2014 to help restore order in the Central African Republic after the president was overthrown the previous year and sectarian violence gripped the country.
The leader of Al-Qaeda-linked Islamic group Ansuru was arrested in Nigeria. A Nigerian military spokesman said Khalid al-Banawi was captured in Lokoja, the capital of the central state of Kogi in the northeastern region of the country. Our correspondent, Kilo Valerie Insalar, has been following up on the story, and he joins me today in the studio. So Valerie, let's get right to the point and tell me more about the circumstances that are surrounding the arrest.
Well, a brief statement from the Nigerian military spokesman said Khalid al-Banawi was arrested in the northeast of the country. The statement, however, fell short of actually mentioning the exact circumstances of the arrest of al-Banawi. And this has raised serious questions in Nigeria as whether he was actually arrested. Remember, in the past, the Nigerian military and the intelligence came out with statements which said that he was actually killed just for him to resurface years after.
So tell me more about the terrorist group Ansuru. Who are they and where did they come from?
Well, Ansaru is basically a splinter group from Boko Haram, which is a terrorist group, as you know, that's been operating in Nigeria since 2009. So Ansaru basically split away from Boko Haram back in 2012 over ideological differences. More specifically, Ansaru wanted or actually criticized Boko Haram for targeting innocent Nigerian civilians, and is basically focused on kidnapping Westerners.
So tell me how this arrest of the leader of the Ansuru group will affect the fight against terrorism in Nigeria and around Africa as a whole.
Well, according to many political and security analysts in Nigeria and across Africa, this is really a significant breakthrough in the fight against terrorism across Africa. They have the opinion that the arrest of Ansaru will signal a warning to terrorist organizations across the African continent that they could fall into the dragnet of the military at any time. And so in Nigeria, these are the views of the security officials in Nigeria. One of them spoke to CCTV, and this is how he reacted to the arrest of Ansaru.
Definitely his capture will give an insight into the methodology and probably the location of some of their hideouts in terms of where their strengths are hidden. And of course, no stone will be left unturned to be able to extract as much information as possible out of these captured deputy chief of the insurgents.
So, well, that's what he thinks, but clearly you should know that there are many terrorist groups that are operating across Africa. In Nigeria itself, there's Boko Haram, which has been causing a lot of havoc in neighboring countries like Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. There's Al-Shabaab in Somalia, striking into neighboring Kenya. There's also Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and there's even the Islamic State, you know, operating in Libya and Tunisia border. So it will really be a big mistake for some people to think that the arrest of one leader, terrorist leader, would actually help keep down the terrorism in Africa. It does have an impact anyway, but not to the point of actually keeping down, actually stopping terrorism on the continent.
Well, every impact is felt, even if small. We are happy to hear about the recent progress that the Nigerian government had with the arrest of the terrorist leader. Thank you so much, Valerie Kilo, for joining us in the studio today. We appreciate you.
So, thank you.
Medical doctors on strike in Osun State of Nigeria suspended their 7-month strike, which comes months after hundreds of inhabitants have been deprived of medical help.
The 7-month-long strike by medical doctors in Osun State under the tutelage of Association of Medical and Dental Officers in Nigeria ended this Sunday, 3rd of April. The chairman of the association, Isiaka Adenkule, confirmed the suspension of the strike in a telephone interview with the news agency of Nigeria. He said the doctors would report for duty even though the government was yet to meet any of their demands. Their decision to resume work was in response to appeals from well-meaning people of the state. This notwithstanding, he said the association will continue to dialogue with the government. Mr. Isiaka said the association took the decision to call off the strike at its annual general meeting held on March 30th after the Speaker of the State Assembly, and some of other prominent figures in the Nigerian government demanded a halt.
The South African parliament voted against the impeachment of President Jacob Zuma, despite a previous court ruling which asked him to pay $15 million of public funds used to upgrade his private home in Nkala. The opposition fell short of 267 votes needed to impeach him. Days before this vote in Parliament, the country's constitutional court ruled that President Zuma should pay part of the public funds used for his home upgrade. Our political consultant, Christian Ngah, has been following the situation and will join us to tell us a bit more. And this political scandal of President Jacob Zuma, what sort of impact do you think that can have on the ANC political party in South Africa?
The scandal is already a very huge blow to both Jacob Zuma, who is the ANC chairman and a South African leader, and to the party. But as to how or whether it will affect the party, my answer is both yes and no. No, in the sense that Zuma is somebody with a very strong character. He is a fighter. He is somebody who hardly gives up. And the fact that he already apologized, I think it shows his humility, and everybody, I mean, to err is human. And I think on that count, South Africans can forgive him. That is perhaps why the impeachment decision which the parliament was supposed to take did not go through. That already tells you that Zuma accepted that he erred, and I think having a direct impact on the party, like negatively, I think it's not possible, it's not feasible. But however, we can understand that corruption is a very, very serious crime in Africa and in the world, and well, it is going to have a little impact, negative impact on the ANC, but not to the extent that it can cause the party to lose power in any election.
And what does this impeachment say about the independence of the judiciary system in South Africa?
This is, in my opinion, a telling story that democracy is really at its peak in South Africa. Because before I come back to the Jacob Zuma scandal, this is not the first time a South African court is, making a very strong point or a decision, even against the powers that be. Remember that during an African Union Congress in South Africa, the court ruled that the South Sudan leader should be held, even though it was decided otherwise. That is to tell you that the South African courts are really, really independent, because a court to rule that a president actually erred financially, I think it's a good example for other African countries to follow. And Cameroon, why not?
South Africa has been facing a lot of social and economic issues. There was the university strike, as well as South Africa losing its top position as Africa's leading economy. Do you think that these particular issues could cause the opposition party to take over power from the ANC political party?
My answer is already no. The ANC, like I said, first of all, is the majority party. Zuma may have his own shortcomings as the current leader, but I think if the ANC intends to continue to maintain power in South Africa, what they need to do is to quickly look at the change of leadership. That is to say, Zuma, you have done your best, but we think that we are not taking the country to any level in terms of employment, in terms of the social amenities. And that is why we have lost our economic giant, Africa's economic giant position to Nigeria, which is even facing a very serious threat of Boko Haram.
According to a new study by the research organization Afrobarometer, just 2 in 5 people have access to a reliable supply of energy per day across 36 African countries. The World Bank reports that the continent's energy sector is marred by insufficient capacity and high cost, and 25 nations in sub-Saharan Africa are facing an energy crisis.
In some countries like Burundi, Chad, Liberia, Malawi, and South Sudan, less than 10% of the people have access to electricity. Over 625 million people are without energy in sub-Saharan Africa alone. That's about 68% of the population, according to the International Energy Agency. The continent accounts for 13% of the world's population, but only 4% of the energy demand. Africa is rich with fossil fuels and renewable resources, but they are not evenly distributed. Only 12% of people in Guinea, for example, have an electricity supply that can work all the time compared to 100% of Mauritians. The 48 countries that make up sub-Saharan Africa generate roughly the same amount of power as Spain, but there are signs of improvement. In Ethiopia, access to electricity has risen from 13% of the population to 27%. In Nigeria, it's gone up from 45% to 56%. Renewable energy investments are on the rise, and hydropower has a huge potential. While it is already representing 1/5 of the overall production, only 10% of the estimated potential is being used, according to the World Bank.
Former Super Eagles captain Kanu Nwankwo criticized the Nigerian Football Federation leadership, saying that it contributed to the national team's failure to qualify for 2 consecutive African Cup of Nations competitions. Nigeria was eliminated from the 2016 tournament after losing 0-1 to the Pharaohs of Egypt on March 29th.
The Super Eagles lost to the Pharaohs in Egypt ruled them out of contention for Gabon 2017, leaving Kanu upset with the Nigeria Football Federation. He told BBC that the top management is not what it is supposed to be, so the whole system is affected. He said the Nigerian Federation has to change its style of leadership if Nigeria is to achieve future success. The 2-time African Footballer of the Year said it was a huge loss for Nigeria, who also failed to qualify for Equatorial Guinea in 2015 to miss another Africa Cup of Nations. He added that the constant replacement of coaches contributes to Nigeria's poor performance and advised that the country's football authorities look for local coaches to head the national squad. The 2-time African Footballer of the Year said it was a huge loss for Nigeria, who also failed to qualify for Equatorial Guinea in 2015 to miss another Africa Cup of Nations competition.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Bridge Africa this week, the program that connects you to Africa's top headlines. And be sure to check out our website, bridgeafrica24.com. Peace and blessings.